Hello, my name is Christopher Lago. Today I'd like to talk to you about the geographical and cultural differences of the Philippines. You see, the Philippines, it's a vast archipelago of regions, rich in cultural differences and teeming with diversity. And I, for one, was wrong. You see, before I met my wife, who's a Filipino native, I just thought it was some small island nation somewhere in the middle of the Pacific near Asia. In fact, I'm going to talk to you about the region, specifically the geography, religion, and the daily life of Filipinos that live there. Hopefully, someday I intend to retire there, seeing as how we have so many family members that currently live there. Starting with the geography of it, something that surprised me was the size of it. You see, Britain is about a third of the size smaller than the Philippines. According to Gideon Lasco, it's about 113,600 kilometers smaller. The only reason we don't realize this is because when we see maps, they're drawn flat. In fact, the world isn't flat, it's round. And we always confuse this because of that. Because the closer you get to the equator, the more stretched out something may become or smaller it may become. Not only is it larger than we had anticipated, but there's about 7,641 different islands there. And maybe that number is wrong too. 117 million people that live there. So it's quite a large area compared to other nations. In fact, it's so large that there's about 170 different dialects or different languages that they speak. Now, most people think that the national language is just Tagalog or Filipino. And yes, in the main area of Luzon, the main region, that's what they do speak. But if you go to Cebu, for example, they speak Cebuano. And it's completely different. If you went there and you only spoke Tagalog, you would never understand each other. But they do speak a common language, English. The reason they speak a common language of English is because it's taught there, due to their American influence around World War II and just before then. You see, it was colonized back in 1898 by the Spanish. For about 300 years, the Spaniards had influence on a number of things, such as religion. And we're going to talk about that in a minute. And then in 1946, they became independent on their own. So going into the religion specifically, according to Jeffrey Hayes, about 81% is Catholic. So a majority of the people living there are Christian, with about maybe 6% as the Muslim religion. Now, since they're so heavily steeped in religion, their laws also engulfed in that as well, such as marriage. If you get married in the Philippines, there's no divorce. You can maybe get an annulment, but that's it. Once you're married for life. You can't get remarried there until maybe it gets changed sometime in the near future. Speaking of religious holidays as well, if you were there, maybe in September, walking through a mall, you might hear Christmas music. And in fact, they start Christmas early in September because they don't have holidays such as Halloween and Thanksgiving like we do in America. They have about 18 days specifically off from the national holidays just to celebrate all the different cultures and religious ideologies, including independence. So what does this really mean? Well, it means that they have a unique set of religious values. You take into example the Simbang Gabi, which literally translates into night mass. They start attending church as early or as late as 3 a.m. And they do this for 9 days before Christmas. So a lot of their traditions and culture revolve around religion, but not everything. You see, their daily life is pretty simple. And sometimes we take advantage of things like a washer and dryer. Well, they don't always have that. In fact, most people don't have that. They live pretty simple lives where they get by with just what they need. And that's not a necessary thing that they have there. According to Jackson Knapp, in fact, their employment, as an example, that makes us different, is their labor jobs, such as electricians, plumbing, carpentry, they're very low paying, making about $10 per day, versus here you might make $25 to $50 an hour. There's quite a bit of difference. You might work as a call center employee there and make above minimum wage, which requires a bachelor's degree. Here in the US, you wouldn't even want to do that job unless you really had to, because it's a high stress and high demand job. Now, how are we really similar also? See, the Philippines has had to fight numerous wars with the Spanish and even Americans, and they had to sort of win their independence and fight for that right, just like America did. And we're very similar in that feature. We're also similar in how we just like to entertain ourselves. I don't know about you, but I enjoy karaoke. And although it was invented in Japan, probably the most popular region of the world that celebrates karaoke and singing is the Philippines. And that's how they take their daily life to a different level. You see, in the Philippines, it's very common to have it around funerals, birthdays, Christmas, you name it. Any holiday, you add a karaoke machine for $10 to $20 a day for 24 hours, and they're going to have a blast. You see, it's not about how we're different or how we're similar, but it's about how we are culturally a different part of the same puzzle. You see, in America, we have different cultures because so many people immigrate here. But in the Philippines, they're spread out through so many different islands. As I mentioned before, the 7,000 plus islands. And that's what makes them regionally different from each other. But they do have some cultural similarities. And one of those is how everyone is generous in nature. And it could be partly because of the religious beliefs. Anyways, that's all the time I have today. And I want to say thank you for listening to me speak. Magandang Gabi, which means good night. Thank you very much and have a good day.